how are you? Welcome to my channel. I'm so excited because today we're going to be doing the Girl Scout cookie tag. I was tagged in this challenge by Christine over at Secrets Read, so it's really cool. I like this one. I haven't had a Girl Scout cookie in years, so maybe I should get one, or maybe I should get some, so that would be really fun. Okay, so the first one is Trefoils, which I don't know that I've had that one. I think it's like the classic like shortbread kind of cookies, and it is a classic novel you love, a classic novel that you love. And for that one, I'm gonna go with Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And you can see my copy is like an older copy. It's pretty banged up. Like it's like falling apart, banged up. But it's got an inscription. I don't know if you can see that very well, but the inscription says your 18th birthday, and it's written in pencil. I love finding books with inscriptions. I just think it's so special. Pages are all dark. I like books with personality. I don't know, there's something about them, but I love my copy. Anyways, if you haven't read this one, I tried to find books that I haven't already talked about too, because I don't want to like talk about the same ones all the time. Anyways, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I haven't seen the movie or anything. I don't know if there's more than one movie or whatever. Anyways, I haven't seen any of the movies if there's more than one. But basically, Dr. Jekyll is, you know, a very respectable man and just, you know, gentle, sweet. He's a gentleman. But he decides to experiment with science and, you know, bring out his other side with science, and brings about his alter ego, which turns out to be his evil side. And gradually this evil side takes over more and more to where it becomes harder and harder for his good side to come back. Yeah, this evil side kind of takes over more and more. You know, it's argued that, you know, this isn't so much about science as it is about mental health. You know, everybody interprets it differently. It's the whole good and evil thing, and how evil kind of takes over and takes the lead in this case. But, you know, like I said, everybody interprets it differently. But I love it. It's a shorter read. It's a quicker read. And, you know, I've obviously loved the classics like Frankenstein and Dracula too, but this one does hold a special place in my heart as well. And I absolutely love it. Next one is Lemon Ups. Lemon Ups, which is a book you find inspiring. Being a horror reader, I don't read a lot of inspiring books. I've read some fiction that was inspiring, but for this one I'm going to go with a nonfiction, and that is Bird by Bird by Anne Lamott. I would love to be a writer someday, and I keep talking about it, and I've written some here and there, but I always end up just scrapping it. But every time I read this book, it makes me want to write. And she talks about the shitty first draft and how it's so important to just write. Like, just get it on paper, just do it. It's not gonna be perfect. And this just, every single time I read it, it just makes me want to write. Like, just get it out there, just do it. Like, just get started. That's the important step, is to just write. It doesn't have to be perfect right now. So I really need to read this again, like ASAP, to get that fire back and to get myself going. Next one is the S'mores Cookie. So that one is a comforting read for me. I have a bunch of comforting reads that I like and pulled to whenever I need something that feels like a hug. And for that one, I'm going to go with Cackle by Rachel Harrison. This is kind of like, I would call cozy horror. It's not super spooky or creepy or anything. There's a pet spider in this, and I freaking love him. Like, he's special. He's one of my favorite characters. Annie has gone through a breakup, and she's moved, and she's got a fresh start thing. And the whole fresh start thing is something that I'm always drawn to anyways. Like, as far as a comfort read and just a comfort in general. Like, I've always been drawn to a fresh start. That's just me. And that's kind of a place I'm at right now anyways. But anyways, Annie has been dumped, and she moves to this small town and she's starting over. She's got a new job. She's got this whole new life. And she meets Sophie. And Sophie is just this magnetic, charismatic, witchy Sophie. And she's sort of drawn to Sophie. And the whole town is kind of creeped out by Sophie and scared of her. But there's something about her that just kind of draws Annie in. But anyways, it's just kind of cozy horror. It's a whole vibe. It's a whole mood. Just this cozy, sort of autumnal. It's like a dark, witchy, cozy, magical, just, yeah, I don't know what to say about it. It's just very cozy, and it feels like a hug, but it's also kind of spooky too, but not overly spooky. Yeah, it's like cozy horror at its finest. I just love it, and I love the pet spider. I don't remember his name. Was it Ralph? I don't remember the spider's name, but yeah, I'm due for a reread, probably in the fall. And look, it's got spiders on the cover because there's like a spider infestation at this house she's staying at, that Annie is staying at. I'm obsessed with this. It's a whole mood. Next up is Adventurefuls. So, an adventurous book. And for that one, I'm going to go with one I haven't read in a long time, but I remember it, and I remember it feeling like an adventure. And that one is Magic Kingdom for Sale, Sold by Terry Brooks, which is a fantasy. And it's like an older fantasy. I want to say it's from the 90s. I read this in college, and this guy that I was dating at the time, recommended it to me. And I had read in high school, but never really fantasy. It was always kind of horror or stuff like that. This was my first ever fantasy book. And I was kind of like, meh, I don't know, maybe I'll read it. But he loaned me a copy. This isn't his copy. I bought my own copy eventually. But he lent me a copy and said, no, just read it. I really want you to read it. And I was just mesmerized by it. I was quickly just drawn in. But this guy, what was his name? I haven't read this since 2004. That's when I went to college. But this guy, what was his name? Ben. He was going through a divorce, and he sees this ad that says Magic Kingdom for sale. It's $1 million. And he says, surely not. But they're looking for a new king for this kingdom, and it's just $1 million. He's going through a divorce, and he's like, yeah, what the hell? So he just throws $1 million out there at this kingdom. So he gets there, and it's like not as advertised. It's falling apart. It's in ruins. And like taxes haven't been paid in years, and it's just a mess. But he goes anyways. And it was definitely an adventure. And I'll read you a little bit of the back. I'll just read you the whole back, because like I said, I haven't read this in a long time. Look at the cover. This is like very, I love it so much. But Landover was a genuine magic kingdom, complete with fairy folk and wizardry, just as the advertisement had promised. But after he purchased it for $1 million, Ben Holiday discovered that there were a few details the ad had failed to mention, such as the fact that the kingdom was falling into ruin. The barons refused to recognize a king, and taxes hadn't been collected for years. The dragon, Strabo, was laying waste the countryside, while the evil witch, Nightshade, was plotting to destroy no less than everything. And if that weren't enough for a prospective king to deal with, Ben soon learned that the Iron Mark, terrible lord of the demons, challenged all pretenders to the throne of Landover to a duel to the death. A duel no mere mortal could hope to win. But Ben Holiday had one human trait that even magic couldn't overcome. Ben Holiday was stubborn. It is an older book, but if you like fantasy and you like adventurous books, yeah, maybe give this a try. I've bought other Terry Brooks books since, but I haven't read them. Just, yeah, a lot of fun. The next one is Samoas, which is a book that blends 2 or more genres. For that one, I'm going to go with Dracula by Dacre Stoker and J.D. Barker. This one is historical fiction and horror. This is one of my favorite books. It's a prequel to Dracula, and they used notes from Bram Stoker to write this. So I'm usually a little nervous about prequels and all that stuff, but this was so well done. So good. Parts of it, Bram Stoker is like locked in a tower, and it's like an abandoned tower. It's dark. He's in this room, and there is a monster on the other side trying to get to him, and he hasn't slept in days, and he's exhausted, and it is so creepy. That part is very, very creepy, and like he's trying to survive this night, but he hasn't slept. He's got this holy water, and he's just exhausted, and he's just trying to survive, and this thing is trying to get to him. So you have that. And while he's in this tower, he's like scribbling down notes. You have that timeline. So there's some chapters on that, and then there's other chapters where Bram is a child, and you have him as a child being sick, and his nanny that's caring for him, and it's kind of a creepy nanny. But he's bedridden, but he's being cared for. The caretaker, Ellen and his sister Matilda become suspicious of the nanny, or they become suspicious of the caretaker, Ellen. And so they like kind of do their own investigating on their own, like, because there's like a bunch of mysterious things happening with Ellen and with the community in general, and so they do their own investigating to figure out kind of what's happening, and what's happening with Ellen. There's a lot of just really creepy things happening. Vampire, of course there's vampires, because it is a prequel to Dracula. You automatically know there's going to be vampires, but it is a slower pace, but it is very dark. It's a whole mood. There's gore, there's like torture-y things, there's just, it is a whole mood. You can see by my little tabby things, you know, when you see that I loved it. I don't tab very many books. There aren't many books that I tab like that, but you know when you see that I absolutely loved it. It was really good. But yeah, prequel to Dracula. I liked this more than Dracula itself, but it was really good. Next up is Do-Si-Dos, and this one is either a book you love that everybody else hated, or a book you hated that everybody else loved. I don't have a copy of this book. So this one is a book I hated that other people love. And that one is going to be a romance, and it Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. Honestly, I don't even want to talk about it. I hated it so much. Like, I know there's a movie coming out of it. I will not be watching it. I've never wanted to throw a book across the room more than this book. I hated it so bad that, like, I haven't read another Colleen Hoover book since, and I don't know that I ever will. So, moving on. Thin Mints, one of your all-time favorite books. I have talked about a lot of my favorite books, so I'm going to try to go with one that I have not talked about. And that one is Phantom by Susan Kay. This one is one of my top favorites of all time. I enjoy Phantom of the Opera. This one is a prequel to Phantom of the Opera. I mentioned that I sometimes am hesitant about prequels, especially when it's not done by like the original author. This one is Eric's backstory. It follows him from like birth all the way up. So you find out how he became the Phantom of the Opera. It has several points of view. You get his mother, you get his, you know, different people that he meets along the way. This is not a review video, so I won't get too far into it, but there are so many beautiful quotes in this. It's beautiful. It's beautifully written. It is tragic. It's sad. There's some comedy in it. Eric is kind of witty. You know, society just failed him. His mother failed him. Society failed him. He does meet some people along the way that help him and that, you know, show him kindness and that show him compassion. And then there are people who fail him even further. But, you know, there are themes of power, love, death, magic, of course, illusion. There's music. It's absolutely gorgeous. And eventually I'll probably do a whole video. I could do a whole video on this book, but eventually I might do that, or eventually I might do a whole video on like my top favorites, and this is probably in my top 10 of all time. It is amazing. I would recommend it to anybody who loves horror, even if you don't. There's something in it for everybody, I think. It's just absolutely gorgeous. So, I love it so much, and yeah, I'm definitely going to be planning a video with this because I could talk about it all day long. It's just amazing. Well, this was a lot of fun. I had a really good time. I appreciate it so much, Christine, for uh, tagging me in this. So I had a lot of fun, and I can't wait to do another book tag video. I will see you guys next Friday. Bye for now.